Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a good day. I really have a poem that I'm about to upload after I create this video. I've been writing some poetry, but I just wanted to take a second to talk about some more metaphors and talk about some more of the rooms in the kingdom of the heart. And what I'm predominantly doing is I'm trying to bring Christ. I'm trying to bring more awareness and consciousness to people while not unnecessarily giving myself ungodly power. I'm just simply trying to guide people to the best of my ability. I just shared a video in my community tab talking about I came in the Father's name. Now, that's not my video, it's just a video that I had just watched and I really liked it. It basically goes hand in hand with everything I've been saying in most of my videos. Well, when watching and listening to him talk about the translations versus transliterations and how these names came to be, it makes sense where Giannis came from now with Yosis and how I've been saying the IE and the I sounded like Y back then. And a lot of these other translations, I've learned a couple of things as well when watching this young man. And so I shared his video to my page if anybody would like to watch. But now I know a lot of people are giving information based on knowledge that we already know. But now I would like to give a little bit of spiritual knowledge. I was talking about the rooms in the palaces earlier. And I think what would help people a lot is if people would start to translate or start to, translate heaven to hearts. And some of the times when you see God and Jesus with who I am or I am and different things like that, or I or that which I am, or different stuff like that, the kingdom of the heart will become more clear. And why scriptures that say, let him who is holy and him who is righteous turn into mockery, and a lot of these other different curses and scrolls that have been placed in the heavens, the heart, that people have been unaware to. A lot of people are innocent. A good buddy of mine talks about this all the time. Most of humanity, and I've been seeing people comment this a lot on social media, most of humanity want to do the right thing. Most of humanity are hungering for a better world and way. Most of us work very hard just to see a lot of destruction in the media a lot of times. Um, and so I try to teach people that it's not always good to follow cults and follow everything we see. That's what I call programming. And with enough programming, a person can become a bot, so to speak, and their automatic nervous system can become a worker of somebody else's ideas, instead of me using my own instincts or me understanding my own thoughts, my own world. Some people are causing serious self-harm spiritually and psychologically. A lot of times they do it unaware because that's how they've been trained to not transgress an idea or religious teaching. I've oftentimes said at the beginning of that book, if you read the Bible and you awaken and read it in a way where you're no longer bound by your old fears and concepts, but can read the words on the page with clarity and not have a clouded mind for an entity that we're trying to build up, then you can understand that the person that's creating everything in that book is the Lord. But the Lord is that which I am. That's conjugated properly because, in essence, the best description for my name is I am. But when I do things to process my will, I, if that makes sense. You see, I am is a descriptive word describing a noun, but I do is verbal, fulfilling will. A lot of times, us as humans have been born into spiritual death because we've never really been taught the true essence of how to understand oneself, but we've been taught a lot of things that were brutalized into humanity. I can reference scriptures like the kingdom of the heart has been spread by pure violence and vain imaginations until now. I could say the same way that Yehohanan ben Hadkol was brutally murdered and crucified and child killed is the same way most people have to come down, through brutal truth. A lot of times at the end when they're wailing and hollering and nobody can really get to them, so to speak. Because what's the old saying? You can't teach an old dog new tricks, because then you've already trained your automatic nervous system, which essentially has control over everything. So that's what sends images, memories, condemnations, dreams. And if that is trained properly, you then become like Goku, a metaphor, and have ultra instincts to where instead of trying to fight evil, I am instinctually fighting evil every day. And so then it became will and that which I am, the way I phrased it. A lot of these words, because we're playing with translations, what we're actually doing is praising old idols and gods that we weren't here to reference. A lot of times history was written by winners. And then a man named William Tyndale put Jehovah and Yahweh back in the Bible. He was a scientific man and a philosopher and really into science, actually. He was a really smart man. He translated and transliterated a lot of stuff in the English Bible until the Pope had him martyred. He was a part of the Lamb. He was killed for his works. And then once that happened, then the Germans with Martin Luther and his 95 Thesis started another branch of Christianity called protesting over in Germany with German princes. Then it spread to England, and then they had the printing press. Not the print. Eventually they created the printing press. And so, like a game of telephone, if you know what that game is when you have maybe you have a group of people, maybe in a big circle or something, and the first person starts, and you're all sitting side by side, and the first person whispers something into a person's ear, and then by the end of the circle, that person next to the person who started says out loud what they thought I said. And that's basically, and this time period is pretty funny. People come up with some wild stuff, and that's essentially what's happening with these words in these books. And then new spirits are born. They become Nephilim, or powerful movements, ideas, concepts. Then they run across the land and take daughters, flesh of man. The reason it is called woman and daughters when referencing flesh is because it comes from the womb man, the earth of the woman, so to speak. And the reason the father is considered the spirit is because he has the genetic code to say what we will be, so to speak. And so those are references and metaphors talking about how basically major movements in spirit from major men then travel across the land and possess other men unaware, or women. And when I say men and women, I'm talking about all of humanity. But when I say things from a book like the Bible, like the Daughters of Man, that's a spiritual reference for the flesh. That's a reference for people. Let's say Michael Jordan. I'm not saying he's good. This is just a reference helping you understand what was happening in a time period where they were a little bit less intelligent, where had different types of knowledge than us and lived a different type of lifestyle. Michael Jordan's huge. Boom. He's spread across the world. That's basically boom. They could be like his spirit became a Nephilim. Depending on his character or whatever, I'm not saying he's a bad, good, none of that. I'm basically saying his spirit captivated the hearts of many. And so when you're dealing with that in a religious aspect 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, those type of teachings spread across the land. And then with each generation, they're adding the old cultural aspects while creating new with each generation. And so that's why that video I just shared in my community page, I believe is a great video, and it helps people understand and learn what's actually happening throughout humanity. And if you really research suffixes and prefixes of words, you'll start to understand what words truly mean. Now, whatever anything's going to mean is what it's going to mean to who you are or who I am, because who I am is that which decides anything. I was made in the image of life. I am the universe observing itself. In the beginning, I did mitosis and meiosis after my parents came together and created me in the womb, man, the earth. Then that which I am created the heart and the flesh. And over the course of me learning the law, sort of speak, that's what the sevens basically are. It's the other seven commandments and the three, or the major spirits are the Ark of the Covenant, the spirit that hovered above the waters, the ark over the flood, and the land I walked over the lake of fire. The lake of fire has come and gone. It's Helle from Germany, from when the Roman missionaries was taking Hades, from when they was taking Gehenna, which was a graveyard, and the Valley of Himnal, who they used to sacrifice children for, according to written information that I have. And so you see how one aspect of something can turn into something later else. Sanatan Dharma was a god. Now they have words called Satan, which is the ultimate evil, and karma, which is basically a word that symbolizes every action has an equal reaction and a consequence to it, whether good or bad. And that's what humans are basically based on, is the reward system, punishment versus reward. When things feel good, we go after them, so to speak, but then there's also self-control, because not everything that feels good to me might feel good to other people, if you catch my drift. And so that's where humbleness and humility come from. And then throughout time, as each generation learns different aspects of things like this, we can become less violent. And I see people on the side of the road and be like, which faction are you, Samaritan? And then go, hey, you're Chinese, I'm African American. Hey, let's grow. Let me learn about your culture, learn about my culture. Not make fun of each other and mock each other. But if we do, and we're laughing and having fun, that's another thing. Mockery isn't always like, you guys are taking things and always putting it, remember I said those stones, putting it either good or evil. And that's not how life works. There's a spectrum with all things. And essentially, people can laugh at each other and have a great time. And there's nothing wrong with people who don't want to mock and laugh. Because I'm going to give you an example. Sometimes something feels natural and it flows and you meet a good friend. But other times you're not in the mood, you got stuff going on, or maybe you just not there yet and you still need to find who I am in the heart before you can show love. Okay, nothing wrong with that. We essentially came from the earth. And so we've come a long way since then, if that makes sense. And in our journey of intellect and learning, that's why I teach people over and over. I try to teach the 10 Commandments to the best of my ability, but not in a way where it's 7 heads on me trying to strike you but essentially, thou shalt not kill. Don't play with that shit. Please don't. Like I said, I don't play with that whole, oh, great, self-defense, is he? No. Self-defense is self-defense. You murder and all that. I don't play with that shit. I don't even like forms of execution for retribution. That doesn't make sense to me. And it just has, you see what I'm saying? Like, if I've already got you and you're a prisoner, I don't have to kill you. You know what I mean? It's just, I feel like a lot of humanity have been taught to be murderers, and this is the age of consciousness to where we wake up from that. So, even myself, I'm going through a journey. Me and my girl aren't having the best day. It has been a cycle of ups and downs, constant. I feel like I'm not going to speak on men and women, but I can only speak on my experience. And I feel like the women I have been with, I don't know if it's because I'm so nice. What then happens is people they jump out of a cage and then just free, do what I want. Because that's the type of personality I am. I try to vibe. So if a person is a wave, I try to be the other wave, and we're now a light particle, and we vibe together. But sometimes people's vibrations are too strong, and it destroys the particle like a binary star. Sometimes when it shoots off into the rest of the solar systems. That happens sometimes. Sometimes there's 2 stars that are spinning each other, and one of them flies out. One of them novas and eats the other one. When it becomes a black hole, different scenarios. The point is, I'm not going to sit in a situation where I allow her to nova and black hole and then drain me ridiculously. Now, I'm not going to do anything haste or rash. I'm not going to put my hands on her or snap. I try to critically think, because I have learned in my 36 years that emotions are fantastic, but not when I let them run rampant. Not when who I am doesn't take control. Because if I just let myself just go anywhere in my thoughts, then when I go there, then what? And so that's what I try to teach people. Self-control. I am who I am. I am sent me to the best of my ability in our language. I am the one that which is, who frees or binds, because my life, my choice. Ye shall have from the houses of bondage. That's what Egypt means. It's a Greek or some type of word from around that way. You shall have no gods before who I am. Now, I want you guys to say stuff like that. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. Do not idol them. No. Okay. You shall have no idols in the earth, the heavens, or beneath the sea. So, in the heart, amongst the flesh, the peoples, and in these deep books I call ocean water that can make you sick if you drink it all unrighteously. Don't bow to them or worship them, for I am jealous. Read the prophets. None of them bowed like that. And if they did, it was out of reverence of respect. Not saying they had to bow to a god. Read them. Then you look at the judges. They was terrified of the angel of fire. It all goes throughout history. The Ark of the Covenant is the first 3 commandments. Don't worship them. Don't bow down to them. Don't take my name in vain. Don't take who I am in vain. Essentially, if you look at humans under certain sensors in UV lights and different lights, we glow. We let off energy. We produce chemical reactions that let off energy. Did you know that while we breathe, how we basically create energy is what we do is we breathe in oxygen. What the body does is the lungs compress the oxygen and it fuses into the bloodstream. Those oxygen particles go to where they need to go. The bloodstream drops it off. The blood cells drop off the blood. That's why blood is red. You'll notice you have blue veins and stuff. When blood has oxygen in it, it becomes red. When it doesn't, which is hemoglobin, when it doesn't, it's blue. It's unoxygenated or probably possesses carbon dioxide. You might want to look that last part up. So what ends up happening is, disclaimer, cigarettes, I wouldn't recommend smoking them if you don't. What ends up happening is the body takes that oxygen molecule, which is O2, and it rips it apart. It's called the electron transport chain. And when it goes through that and it rips that oxygen apart, what it does is it takes that energy that was bound in that oxygen molecule, it literally takes it and uses it for energy in the mitochondria. I believe that last part with the mitochondria. It's the powerhouse of the cell. It gives the cell energy, and then the energy does a whole bunch of stuff. A little electric boost. And so, yeah, man. I don't remember why I was talking about that, but the point is, you learn something new every day. You know, there's science and religion. I don't even really like religion too much because what people do is they create universal groups with it, and you're supposed to have really a spiritual cleansing of, I am supposed to have a spiritual cleansing of my soul so that way I can navigate. That's what I'm going to say. The body, with all the electricity and energy and stuff, the body is, I'm going to show you something quick. Right here, I'm creating friction, but you don't perceive it. The reactions are so small, you don't perceive none of that. I'm not sitting on my couch. There is a literal field between me and the couch and my clothes and the cigarette in my hands that keeps them from 100% touching. Their atoms are not touching. I can assure you this based on knowledge that we possess. Then we have electron microscopes now. They're called electron microscopes. They can literally see atoms now. It's a wrap. They can see cells, all that. And so I said that to say this, we're energy. And so people all the time tell me, God is light, God is fire, God is this, that, the brightness, all that other stuff. But what you guys are failing to realize, if we are made in the image of who I am, and we're literally comprised of energetic chemicals creating energetic reactions that create heat, which create light, We're glowing and we just don't perceive it because of how the retinas and how the eyes see and perceive the world. So how y'all saw Neo in the Matrix? There could be beings in the universe, maybe even our cats. We don't know what these other creatures see and perceive like that yet, from my knowledge. And we could be glowing. Our eyes are a much different spectrum than the other animals. I believe dogs see black and white or gray or something like that, and cats, or I'm telling you all. Maybe what we perceive is for perfection for our viewing, because would you want to be glowing all the time? That would blind you. And we don't know what is. I was telling a buddy, what if we are literally the gods and like we got bored one day because we knew everything. We knew it was going to happen. We never felt pain. We never felt nothing. We was always just content. So one day we was like, let's feel it all. We want to feel pain. All that. Let's do it. Let's create something. Now we're here and we're like, oh, the gods, oh God, anxiety, fear, what happens when we die? Then one day we wake up in like our thrones or whatever, and we're all around each other. And maybe like other gods that awaken first or angels, whatever, are like clowning us like Cartman. Like, you fools, that was funny, wasn't it? Like, we just don't know. They're saying this is a matrix and a simulation now, which based on what I've learned scientifically, particles are appearing and disappearing. You can't create and destroy matter. Weren't aware to it yet. We hadn't discovered such things yet. And so, dude, that ain't no different than pixels loaded on a screen. But at the same time, that's disrespectful because pixels loading on a screen were created in the images of some of the things like us. Like the brain, the microchip mimics a brain. So does quantum computers. A lot of things mimic our basic machinery, so to speak, or our physicality. And so we don't know. We weren't given. Some people be like, yes, we were the Bible. Okay. If they changed Jesus from Yehoshua and Yehohanan and all these other names, then I can assure you they changed a lot of stuff in that book. And what I'm telling people is to come to the heavens, rise to the Father. Don't cling to me. Rise to the Father or Mother. I am. It's in John. Read it if you don't believe me. Then why wasn't that tainted? Because I tested it for myself. And when I saw what loving instead of hating did, and mercy and I will never leave thee and forsake thee, John and Joshua, I was like, let me use it for myself. So like a young mage at level 1 intellect, I began to conjure in the spirits and found that which I am, the Holy Spirit. You all are. We're all a part of the network. Sciencey people that want to get in for cosplay, we have a hippocampus. Hippocampus is plastic. I don't know how. It's the center of the brain that controls most of the neural activity. And nothing in the body is compatible with plastic. The nails, bones. Teeth, bones. Bones. Go watch Altered Carbon and just, I don't even know, man. So I'm telling y'all, we just aren't sure yet. And I believe the more torment we add to this Tower of Babel that's been produced, the longer there's going to be torment within oneself. So let's go ahead and awaken and learn for ourselves from, if you're going to stand on the stone, that means the stone that was taken out of the mountain was the 10 Commandments with the hand of fire, the same angel of Joshua, the same angel in the Judges, the same. I can give you the angel right now. I am who I am. I am the living one. I'm the one who frees from the land of bondage, from the house of bondage. You shall have no gods before who I am. Don't bow to them or worship them. You shall have no idols. In the heart, the earth, the flesh, the books, the heavens, the earth, the seas. Don't take who I am in vain. Don't take my name in vain. Yehohanan is where they got Jehovah. That man translates or transliterates, however you want to say it, to John. Well, it's a proper name to John and Juan. But Juan was first because English came way later from Spanish and Latin and all that. So it translated to Juan. I looked up what Wa means. I think it's in Swahili and some African language because I hear it all the time. It's the name of God in the ancient language. And then Ni is to be. Even in African, my name is God. In Hebrew, my name is God. In Spanish, my name is God. I don't understand why any of this is happening. Jehovah and Yahweh is the same name with the E and the A switched and an O added in the middle. They're basically adding cosplay and different names. The language was of Jad. We don't even know what they were doing or what it means. But based on the oral law and how it spread throughout time from people that wouldn't bow and people that weren't killed amongst the ones that were killed and could still spread the word, it came to be. I found the crucified man. That's why they keep calling him John in English. The Christians got married to the new story, whatever the spirit. The Catholics did. And then the Protestants, English and them, beheaded the story and took John out the equation and turned him into a simple prophet. He was the crucified man. I found it. That's why Peter was walking with John and healed some man at the Beautiful Gate. He was taking the teachings that he got from John and healing the leprosy within their spirits. You wouldn't believe. You guys will see people now buying holy water and crosses. This lady that works for Trump is selling blessings for $1,000 and giving a cross. Now imagine how they were back then being manipulated by kings and stuff and religious teachings. They were probably petrified by gods. So let's bring forth the word, because Jehovah, based on what I've learned, it means I am gracious, or a gracious new gift. It comes from Naya, and they talk about Neo and Yanes and all this other stuff in Greek. The Greeks got all their information from Africa for the most part, and a couple of Asian spots, for the most part Africa. They didn't go to Canaan. The Greeks went to Africa. Then Julius Caesar went to Africa and exiled the Africans. This Canaan story is getting old, real old. You guys are playing in a desert trap. So whatever, man. And you guys that are praising Melchizedek and Abraham, I'm telling you, those were the Hindus from the Indus Valley and the Babylonians at the time. They conquered over in the Middle East and the Indus Valley. Then Abraham went up into, that's just simply saying that the people from the Indus Valley, like Nimrod and all them, remember? They went to Egypt. And then that's the Hyksos in written history. I try to give written history so that people can understand what people are doing is creating cosplay. Like in that Philos of Greece, research that. That's where philosophy comes from. He took a bunch of writings from Plato and Greece and Plato and Socrates and all them, allegory of the cave and all that. And then what they did was a man named Josephus mixed a lot of it into the Torah and taught Rome a lot of. That's why a lot of these people would be like, Easter doesn't come from pagan. Shut the fuck up. Gracefully, please. Because it's getting old. You guys are trying to say buffoonery at this point. They mix paganism with a bunch of religions, and now we have that big beast that strikes with the heads and the 16 laws and all that stuff. We get it. So, like I said, the lake of fire and all that's gone. It is symbolism. It's not gone, but if you would choose to still drown in it, that's one's own choice. But if you're like who I am, get in the ark like told to, and walk above the waters, then you won't have a problem. You won't be drowned by other men's teachings. Because every day you can go and try to use telepathy and predict and prophecy and blah, blah, blah. And when none of it comes true, then you'll start trusting in who I am and realizing it's not magic. You're taking me for granted and all the powers that I do have, so to speak. Like that prophetess who kept saying, oh, and they were like, oh, she's so big. And then she made up every time I said Kamala, I want Kamala, I said, I want her to win. Check all my comments and videos. I said it would be proficient for her to win because they're going to find out with Nazism if she doesn't. And then that came true. They found out and they're finding out. So be set aside, man. Be set apart. But don't let me tell you what to do. Let the Lord guide thee righteously, not with religious cosplay, by following the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not covet for thy neighbor's house, which in this day and age means want what everybody else has, because the grass ain't always greener. You know that little saying? Thou shalt not bear false witness, especially in the court of law. That creates movements and lies and gets people locked up and killed and hurt. Thou shalt honor thy father and mother, your creators, right? And then keep the day of rest holy, I believe. There's something else on this. Yeah, so that's now you see how simple that is? That was simple, right? My burden is light. Basic laws, try to name whatever else you create is for you and your family, your world, whatever. But remember, I lay the sins of the parent onto the children. So whatever you give birth to, that spirit's going to leak onto them. And it would be best, I'm telling you in this day and age, if you had a solid ground of, I'm not like spirituality is something one has to learn on one's own, but also the parents teach you until you're grown. So I suggest people get into some form of intellect, knowledge, science, education. And when I say philosophy, just something to teach the mind to think, not create definitive statements. A lot of times humans try to create definitives all the time, and that's where we mess up as people. Because as I've assured most of the, I'm sorry, as I've assured most of you, this is a lighter, and a person can make a definitive statement. When you flip the lighter, it works. But that's not true. Watch. Something in the environment changed the conditions to where it didn't work. If I was underwater, it wouldn't work. If I was in space, because there's a vacuum and no oxygen, it wouldn't work. Will there be oxygen for a second? I might explode because it's a vacuum and I'm full of oxygen. And so, just different stuff like that. Humans say a lot of definitives all the time instead of treating life like plasma fluid. Like at any point, I just learned something new. At any point, I am renewed. At any point, I am learning something over what I just learned. Because Neil deGrasse Tyson did make a very great statement. Most scientists aren't going around saying, we know, or this is, blah, blah, blah. Research scientists are constantly wrong and learning and having new hypotheses until they're right. And a lot of times when we do find something, it's an accident. I'm telling you, that's how a lot of this stuff works. So, I love y'all, and navigate righteously. Because with the righteous navigation system, you may never get lost again. I am who I am. I am gracious salvation. And so are you. I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. And perfect love casts out fear. If we have fears for fear of punishment, something we learn from other people, just like a punishment at the beginning, the Lord chooses love on this day, like the forefathers. We're still here, aren't we? Somebody had to fight for us. And so, when I say us, don't get confused. Love is love. I don't have to stab somebody, but defense is another story. So, let that make sense in terms of all these religious zealots who think they're going to blow something up or cause pain and then receive something. So, stay blessed. And always remember, those who are pure of heart will see who I am. Don't cause harm. It's like the law. Love who I am with all my heart and soul, and love my neighbors the same. But if I'm showing my neighbors hate, then that's the love I'm showing myself on the inside and don't even realize it.